Are your emotions running the show? Let's fix that in today's video. By the way, if you're looking to up your discipline game, download my free ebook, Discipline Made Simple, 5 proven steps to transform your life in the next 30 days. I'll put a link in the comments in the description below. I have to admit that I feel like my emotions have been getting the best of me lately. Have you had those times in your life? Can you relate? I had 2 situations over the past week alone that made me really sit up in my chair and think, what am I doing? I know that I'm going way too fast and I'm making decisions way too quickly. And without really taking a pause and thinking through them, or even maybe taking a pause to pray and ask, God, is this the right decision? I know it's because I've taken on way too much all at one time. And I need to slow down a little bit to be more present and to take time to think properly. So I just feel like I'm just running too fast. I'm not really thinking. I'm making commitments to things that I know I don't have time for. And I just have to put myself on a pause sometimes because I want to do too many things, sometimes all at the same time, unfortunately. I think we've all been there, right? Even sending that angry email when you get something that really takes you off, or making that impulse buy, or saying something that we instantly regret. It turns out that science backs up our why in really why our emotions hijack our decisions and why we get into that spiral sometimes. And there's also ways that we can outsmart them as well. So there's so much science in emotional decision making, believe it or not. Who would have thought, right? Did you know that when you're under stress, when you're under overwhelm, the amygdala, that tiny almond-shaped part of our brain, it goes into overdrive. Researchers call this amygdala hijack, where emotions overpower logic. How about that? That is happening to me. And this leads to some knee-jerk reactions oftentimes, or the feeling that you're not thinking through some things when you're making a decision. So according to a study published in Nature Neuroscience, heightened emotions can reduce activation of the prefrontal cortex, that part responsible for rational thinking. So there is some science behind why we are rushing to make decisions. We are rushing to respond to an email because we're really ticked off. It's all brain chemistry. So let's talk about some bad decisions by the numbers. 70% of major financial mistakes are driven by emotions like fear or overconfidence. So it could go both ways, right? This comes from the Journal of Behavioral Finance. It could be you're afraid or you're just too overconfident. Thought that was really interesting. Those seem to be like 2 extremes, right? 50% of impulse purchases are driven by mood rather than need. And I know that that happens to me. Sometimes, even if I'm scrolling later in the evening, which I try not to do, I find myself doing impulse buys. And then I wake up the next day thinking, I didn't really need that. Why did I even buy that? And I'm like scurrying to try to cancel whatever I ordered. 40% of leaders, they admit to making poor business decisions due to stress. So this comes from Harvard Business Review. So I could definitely see that. I know when we're in a stressful environment, even if you're working in a corporate job or you're working for someone, sometimes when you're so stressed out, you're not really taking the time to really think things through. So how can you outsmart your own brain and your own stress and all of these things that are going on? You're gonna wanna consciously pause and breathe. Even a 10-second pause can help your rational brain catch up. Try maybe box breathing, and that's when you do an inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for another 4. So give that a try. I know that it does help me to slow me down. It's just about me taking the time to actually do it, right? Sometimes these techniques are all great, but we have to mindfully think, okay, I gotta make a decision. I'm gonna pause and breathe. A second tip can be name your emotion. So it's not always the same triggers, right? Studies show that labeling your feelings, so if you're labeling yourself like, I'm anxious or I'm frustrated, it can reduce its intensity. And it can also slow you down and make you pause to think. So I know sometimes, we all get those emails that we're just really aggravated about. But if I take the time and I just say to myself, I'm feeling anxious today, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling frustrated, it makes me sit and think, maybe I shouldn't be answering this email right now. So give that a shot. And think about the future you. So stop and ask yourself when you're in the middle of making a big decision is, will this decision still make sense in a week, in 3 months, in a year? If not, definitely step back. And run the numbers. Whether it's a big purchase or a tough decision, look at the data, not just the gut feeling and how you feel. Because even if you're buying something, like say you're buying an exciting new car, you need a new car, sometimes these salespeople, they have all of the techniques to make you feel good about the situation. But take a pause and step back and look at the data, look at your finances, look at your monthly payments maybe. Sometimes we get so hung up in the emotions, we're like, oh, I can afford the payment. But then when we get home, we're thinking, holy smokes, like how the heck are we gonna do it? So take a pause, step back. Don't always go with your emotions. Look at the data, look at the reality, and make a decision that way. So what's your challenge this week? Before making any big decision, pause for 30 seconds and ask, is this emotion or logic talking? Right? Sometimes it's emotional, it has nothing to do with something that's real. So let me know how it goes. Put your tips, if you have any, in the comments, and also any stories in the comments that you've struggled with making decisions and being way too emotional. I've talked to a lot of people this week, especially those that are investing in crypto. That has been very volatile over the last few weeks. So they get into emotional buying and emotional selling, and sometimes it's just not working in the way that they want to. We have to pause, breathe, and reflect sometimes, right? So if you have a crazy emotional decision story, let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from it. Or if you have any tips, like I mentioned, that can help us add to the tips from this video and get us where we want to go. So here's to making wiser, calmer decisions. And if you found this content valuable, please consider sharing, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next video.